Good afternoon, everybody. This is Stephanie Loop. I'm going to kick off today's monthly call for nutrition support. Thank you all so much for joining. We're going to be covering some important topics today. We are going to be talking about summer EBT updates. We're going to have Melissa Campbell with USDA talk about the Healthy Meals Incentive Initiative Recognition Awards. We're going to talk some about the final rules, some SFSP reminders, CEP reminders, equipment grant reminders, memos, health inspection reminders, as well as some upcoming trainings. Okay, so first let's talk about summer EBT or what we're calling sunbucks. I'm not sure if you've all um, been seeing this pop up recently in the news. But this summer, there are going to be three different ways that we're combating hunger in Louisiana. So, first, we've got the summer EBT or Sunbucks program. This is grocery shopping benefits. It's very similar to our pandemic EBT program. We're going to talk more about what it is and what it does. We've got SFSP or SSO group on-site meals. And then we've also got SFSP and SSO meals to go. Okay, so what is summer EBT or Sunbucks? This is the first year that summer EBT has been codified in federal regulations. It is a new child nutrition program, and it provides a grocery benefit during the summer months to families with eligible children for free or reduced price school meals. It was included in the Consolidated Appropriations Act in 2023 for with this year being uh, the first year that it's in place. Um, and, for a while, we were kind of uncertain if Louisiana would be participating in summer 2024, but it is looking more and more like we will be. We do have um, two agencies that are working together on summer EBT or Sunbucks. This is similar to pandemic EBT. We are working with DCFS to implement the program. So DCFS is considered the coordinating agency. They will be issuing summer EBT benefits to all eligible students beginning this summer. They're going to be providing some customer service to summer EBT families regarding access and use of their benefits. And they're also going to be the ones collecting data from school systems on enrollment and eligibility. Um, so from the LDOE side, as the partnering agency, we're providing support to our LEAs and our SFAs related to summer EBT. And then we're also going to have a call center with general FAQs for families that have questions. Um, you may all know that DOE is a little bit limited in how we can assist because we're not allowed to possess or share PII of students. And so it does limit our ability to answer student-specific questions as it relates to summer EBT. So DCFS, they've submitted a waiver because we did miss the initial deadline to submit for summer EBT 2024. They've submitted a waiver to USDA. It is still being processed. And they are also working on the management plan, the plan on exactly how summer EBT is going to work in Louisiana. There's going to be a few different pathways for eligibility. So, in general, the students that are eligible for NSLP are also going to be eligible for summer EBT. We're going to have a streamlined certification process. So your families that are already identified as eligible through a directly certifiable program, such as SNAP, TANF, or Medicaid, are going to, they're already identified and they're going to be able to receive this benefit. Our non-CEP schools who take up free and reduced price meal applications, you already have a list of who's eligible and who's not eligible. But for our CEP schools, for those that are not streamlined certified at a CEP school, there is going to be the option of a summer EBT application. And it's going to be primarily for those CEP students who didn't qualify based on direct certification. And as you have As you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I am going to pause after the summer EBT section to answer questions before we move on to the rest of the training today. Okay, so here's some of the action steps that LEAs or SFAs can take. I put the link in the chat to this training, and you should be able to click on the link to provide information to families and end of year packets. We've communicated this information out to system leaders and superintendents and principals, but this is a link to a one-pager that can be sent home with families, and it's going to give them the link to DCFS's website. It's going to give them information such as making sure that their address with their LEA is current, that it's that what's on file is their current accurate address. It would just be a really good idea. We understand the short timeline that we're working on, and how much has to be done, and students are about to be on summer break. You may have data managers that are going on vacation, et cetera. So we're trying to get you information as we have it, but just know that we don't have an approved plan yet. So things are going to be evolving, and we will communicate that information out to you as we know more information. Data managers are going to be providing files to DCFS similarly throughout the summer months as they did in pandemic EBT. Obviously, more information to come in terms of the format, the students to send, the students to identify, but there is going to be some similar work as in pandemic EBT. You can spread the word to families in your community, send out that one pager, let them know about this new program. Encourage families who receive benefits through SNAP, FDPIR, TANF, Medicaid, et cetera, to make sure that their mailing address is up to date, especially within the LEA. Tell families who are automatically enrolled to watch for their card in the mail. We anticipate those students on SNAP who are Streamline certified are going to get their cards first. And then it'll kind of be like a phased approach where, the Streamline certified kids will go first, then maybe LEAs that have free and reduced price data based on applications, they may be able to send files in next. And then we're anticipating the ones that have to fill out that summer EBT application on DCFS's website to kind of be the third phase of benefit issuance. You can encourage families who may have eligible children to apply on DCFS's website. And then we can also maybe send out text message alerts or email alerts to families within your school system once all of that is ready to go. But those families, the things they may want to make sure they have: their child's name, address, date of birth, school system, school name, and possibly their student ID. The application is probably not going to unroll until July 1. That's our anticipated date. But like I said, all of these plans are in flux. They haven't been approved yet by USDA. But since we know we are on a time crunch, we're trying to get you the information that we do currently have. SFAs may be required to provide eligibility data to data managers in certain instances. You may receive inquiries at your SFA about summer EBT benefits, but the vast majority of applications will be processed through USDA and Louisiana's agreement with Nutrilink, and the link to that is going to end up being on DCFS's website. So under program requirements established by the United States Department of Agriculture for summer EBT, schools approved under the community eligibility provision do require students who are not directly certified or categorically eligible to be income qualified. So this is a huge difference from pandemic EBT. Pandemic EBT, all students at those CEP schools received benefits, but this year, every student will have to individually qualify based on income. So summer EBT is being implemented differently than how pandemic EBT was. And this is going to be an important message to give to families. Um, we can also continue to process school nutrition program household eligibility or summer EBT applications through the end of the year. Um, LEAs are not going to be responsible for processing applications. That's going to happen through the Nutralink website. However, there will be data. What the plan is right now, although, like I said, it hasn't been approved by USDA, would be that the results from the applications that are filed would then go back to the LEA for the data manager to confirm enrollment within that school system. But there will not be a need to do income verification or for the LEA to actually process applications. So please be prepared for your data managers to upload eligible student data, including student mailing addresses to DCFS, pending additional instructions. And then after the school year ends, we are anticipating that application for summer EBT to be available likely after July 1. Here's kind of a visual on how this process works. If a student does not attend an NSLP participating school, they're not going to qualify to submit a summer EBT application unless they are Streamline certified. Okay, I'm going to take a minute to scroll through some of the comments and questions that have come in. This training is being recorded. It will be posted. The link to the slides, I'm going to post it one more time in case you missed it to everyone. And also, we are really encouraging everybody to email child nutrition programs at la.gov if you have any questions about summer EBT. Okay, so we had a question, does the school have to be part of the National School Lunch Program for students to be eligible for summer EBT? The answer to that question is maybe. If the child is Streamline certified, if they are already on SNAP, their enrollment doesn't matter. If they are if they're between ages 5 and 18 and they receive SNAP, they will receive this benefit. However, if a student has to apply and qualify based on income, then they do have to be enrolled at an NSLP school. So for CEP schools, do the parents apply for the summer EBT application? Yes. Once DCFS has the link to that application, those students who do not qualify based on a directly certified program are going to apply through the summer EBT application. The application, again, we're anticipating that it's going to open around July 1. However, more information to come. I need, so the Nutralink is going to be the application process for income eligibility. I do not have details yet on if parents know at the time of application if they're approved or rejected. That's more information to come on that. If the student qualifies based on income, does the student have to be enrolled at least one day in May to receive the benefit? They do have to be enrolled in a school. During before the eligibility period or the summer EBT operational period. The brochure or media announcement to parents, if you follow the link that I shared for these files and you click on provide information to families and end of year packets, that is where you can find the links. And that's the one pager that can be given to parents. The dollar amount set for the Sunbucks is $40 a month or $120 for the summer. My understanding is that from Nutralink, they will send information to school systems in order to check enrollment of the students who applied, but more information to come on that. Do students who receive free and reduced meals automatically receive EBT benefits, or do they need to apply? So the answer there is it depends. Students who put in a free and reduced price meal application with their school, so a non-CEP school, that information should already be on file at the school. They likely will not need to apply again. For students that receive directly certified benefits, they're on SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, those students are likely going to be streamlined certified. They will likely not have to apply again. It will the primary group of students that will be applying are students who attend CEP schools but are not directly certified. Those are going to be the primary group that's going to need to apply. However, I think that families, even if they qualified a different way, it's not going to hurt if they decide to apply again. When should we share out this one pager with families? This is for sure happening. It sounds like we're waiting on final approval. So DCFS is working currently with USDA on getting a waiver approved. However, we are moving forward with this information. So we are encouraging all LEAs to send this information out with end of year packets. Will the students receive a new card? Currently, what DCFS is thinking is that children that already have a SNAP card will have their benefit reloaded onto the SNAP card, but all other students will receive a new card. However, that could change over time. Is everyone in a CEP school eligible? No, they are not. This is a main difference between pandemic EBT and summer EBT. Only the direct cert kids, the kids that are already on SNAP, Medicaid, et cetera, can be streamlined certified. However, the other students, if they are income eligible, they can submit a summer EBT application through DCFS's website. We are not requiring that you send out information in an end of year packet, but if it's something that you think would be beneficial to your families, then you certainly could send it. Income does matter for CEP schools. CEP students do not all qualify like they did during pandemic EBT. Their income does matter. If they are on a directly certified program, then they will receive benefit. If they are not on a directly certified program, they will have to apply and be approved only if their income meets the national school lunch standards. Virtual students will not qualify if they have to submit a summer EBT application. Only the students that are already on SNAP will be streamlined certified. So data managers, more information is going to be coming for data managers. We do not have all the details yet. DCFS is working with USDA on all of the specifics in terms of what the data is going to look at. However, it's going to look similar to what it looked like in pandemic EBT. We will be working with data managers, with LEAs, to make sure that you have the information that you need to have when you need to have it. This presentation and the recording of this presentation is going to be posted to louisianafitkids.com. If you missed it, I'm going to put again in the chat the link to these slides, the slide deck. Student participation in the summer food service program does not affect their ability to get summer EBT benefits. Um, so I'm putting in the chat right now. This recording is going to be posted to louisianafitkids.com. Okay. Okay, so again, and I'm going to put this in the chat as well. Child nutrition programs at la.gov. If you have any questions, any additional questions um, that weren't answered during this section, please send us an email. We're happy to address your questions to the best of our knowledge or reach out to DCFS for more clarity. Children that are already on SNAP will most likely, from my last conversation with DCFS, have their benefits loaded to their current card. However, all other students that are going to be receiving summer EBT benefits will most likely be issued a brand new card for summer EBT. Okay, so again, a privacy agreement with Nutralink. I have not sat in on the meetings that DCFS has had with Nutralink. I know that USDA has an agreement with Nutralink. Um, so, but I'm sure DCFS is looking at that. I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer to that question. Will letters be sent out to parents when funds are loaded? I don't have the details on that question. Kids who stopped getting Medicaid benefits a few months ago but had it earlier in the school year. So the requirement for direct certified or what we're calling streamlined certified students is that if the child received benefits at any time during the preceding school year, so July 1 of 2023 through the end of the operational period, August 15th of 2024, they will be eligible for summer EBT benefits. So yes, if a child stopped getting Medicaid benefits a few months ago, they will still be eligible. DCFS is working with Department of Health on getting the file that's going to be compliant for summer EBT. Okay, so again, please send us an email, childnutritionprograms@la.gov. The recording and this slide, other than being posted at that link that I shared earlier, it will be posted to the Louisiana Fit Kids website. I'm so sorry for any confusion about the link to this call. I hope that it's been beneficial, at least to answer very preliminary questions. We appreciate you. We know that this is, this is not this is being implemented very quickly, and we're going to do our best to keep open lines of communication with all of you to make sure you have the information you need when you need it. So I'm actually going to turn it over to, we're going to proceed with our call. I'm actually going to turn things over to Melissa Campbell. Melissa is with our USDA Southwest Regional Office. She's going to talk about promoting Healthy Meals Incentive Initiative Recognition Awards. Feel free, if you hopped on the call for summer EBT, feel free to stay on the call, or to drop off the call if you need to get back to work. But we're going to turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, everybody. Thank y'all so much for having me today. And I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know you've got a lot of other topics to cover, but I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the Healthy School Meals Initiative Recognition Awards, because I'd really love to see all of our Louisiana school districts apply. So again, for those who don't know me, my name is Melissa Campbell. Used to work at Department of Education, and now I've transitioned over to USDA. You've probably been initiative right throughout the last year and a half during various webinars and conferences, maybe news releases or other promotions. And the initiative includes multiple parts. It includes grants for schools. I don't know that any in Louisiana received grants. It includes larger grants for large organizations to develop training and educational materials and to administer subgrants. But today I really just want to focus on the recognition award piece of it. And you can switch one more slide over. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, Misty. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So the recognition awards include 8 different types of awards that school systems can apply for on your own behalf to be rewarded for changes that you're likely already making, especially since the Child Nutrition Program final rule has now been released. There are 2 main categories of awards. There's Trailblazer Awards and Innovative Practice Awards. So on the screen here, you can see that there are 4 types of Trailblazer Awards. But to simplify, really, you can apply for a breakfast award or a lunch award. And you can apply either as a small or rural school district or a non-small, non-rural school district. So again, I'm going to really focus on the Trailblazer Awards for this little 5-10 minute presentation, because while the paperwork requirement and the application process has been very much streamlined for all the awards, the Trailblazer Awards in particular seem to require the least amount of paperwork and seem to be the quickest to apply for. Okay, you can skip to the next slide. But again, the other category of awards is Innovative Practice Awards. And that category covers 4 types of awards: Innovative School Lunch Makeover, Cultural Diversity, Preparation of School Meals, and Nutrition Education. So you may want to apply for one of these awards if you're really focusing on doing scratch cooking in your district or sourcing local foods. If you're working to incorporate recipes that reflect the cultural diversity of your student population, especially those of you who have participated in the Festival of Flavors grants, where you developed recipes, or maybe you're using some of the recipes that were developed. Or if your district has worked to engage students and families, excuse me, in nutrition education through creative methods, you are more than welcome to look at and apply for some of these awards. These might require a little bit more documentation to be submitted. You might have to upload your standardized recipes if you've developed some new recipes. You may have to upload copies of nutrition education materials, but I will share the link that you can read this criteria after the presentation. Next slide. So I wanted to go back to the Trailblazer Awards and go over these criteria with you, especially. Again, with the start of the final rule coming out, these are award categories that most districts should already qualify for. And again, the for these awards is minimal. The Breakfast Trailblazer Awards focus on what you've done to reduce the sugar content of your school breakfasts. You have to have made changes within about 12 months prior to submitting the application. So as we talk about these things, if these strategies to reduce sugar at breakfast, you haven't done them yet, during the summer, now might be a great time for you to look at these and say, okay, we can do this strategy too. And then you implement that for August and apply for your award in the fall. I do want to point out that there's a little star next to student engagement, because again, for this award, you have to show that you've done strategies to reduce sugar at breakfast, and you have to show that you have done student engagement techniques. You provided nutrition education, done some surveys, taste testing, etc. However, the star is there because if you're a small school district, 5,000 kids or less, or if you're considered a rural district, you don't have to do any student engagement. You just have to show that you've reduced your sugar content at breakfast. Okay, next slide. So what are the things that you could do to show that you've lowered your sugar content at breakfast? Here's the most popular strategies. Offer only unflavored milk at breakfast. Take your dry cereal and remove any of them that have a high sugar content, which is generally 6 grams of added sugar per ounce or more. Remove any of your higher sugar yogurts. Stop serving or remove any grain-based desserts from the menu. So in the series of links I'm going to share with you right after this presentation, I'll include a link to the whole grain resource, which I know everybody probably already has, but just so it's quick and easy to reference, I'm going to share the whole grain resource, that Exhibit A, that'll show you right there which grain items are considered grain-based desserts. So to apply for the award, you have to do 4 things. You have to submit a description of 2 strategies that you used at breakfast to lower your sugar, and say how they've impacted the sugar content at breakfast. You have to submit the names of your schools in your district that are using these strategies, because at least half the schools in your district have to be doing these, the 2 things that you pick. And all grade levels must be represented. So if you have 4 schools in your district, at least 2 of them have to have the lower sugar strategies, and all K to 12 grade levels have to be represented, or all grade levels in your district. The third thing you have to do is submit a copy of 1 month of your menus that have been posted online that reflect these changes. And then the 4th thing you have to do, only if you're a larger district, or if you're not rural, is to submit a description of student engagement activities that you've done. So, and that's it. And you can go to the next slide. So our other category of award laser is our lunch awards, and these are what you have done in your district to lower sodium. So it's structured the same way as the breakfast awards, except instead of focusing on sugar, the lunch ones focus on sodium. As you can see by the star on the slide as well, again, if you're a small or rural school district, you do not have to do student engagement techniques. You just have to show what you've done to lower sodium at lunchtime. Next slide. So some of the things that you could do at lunch to lower the sodium, incorporating fresh, frozen poultry, fish, beef, etc. Serve fresh or frozen vegetables or vegetables with no salt. Purchase lower sodium forms of products from vendors. Use our salt-free seasonings. I do want to note, though, that for the lunch awards, all of the schools in your district have to be doing whatever two strategies that you show that you're doing. At breakfast, you only had to show that 50% of your schools were lowering the sugar with the strategies. At lunch, you have to show that all 100% of your schools. Other than that, they are virtually identical. You can skip to the next slide. So for those of you wondering if you are in a rural school district or not, I'm going to share the link at the end of the presentation with the National Center for Education Statistics Locale Lookup. That's a mouthful. Or you can Google it if you forget to copy down the link. And you can look up your school sites to see if they are considered rural or not. And so in this example, I used Point Capee High School. And because Point Capee is in a green area, as you can see on the bottom left, rural areas are in green. So this school would qualify as a small or a rural district. Skip to the next slide. And then by contrast, I decided to try Baton Rouge High School to see how that would fall in the rural locator. And that is very clearly in the pink section. So it is considered not rural. So look up your schools if you're interested in applying for the awards. Really try to go for the small or rural districts. I think you'd be just surprised at how many districts may be considered rural, or how many schools within your districts may be considered rural. Next slide. So when you are ready to get online and apply for this award, you can go to the Healthy Meals Incentive Recognition Award website. Again, I'll share the link. And just click on that Apply Now button. And I certainly encourage you to, when you get a moment, click on that and just create the account and get started. Next slide. And then I wanted to show just a few screenshots of what the actual application looks like once you get in. One of the things that you will have to do is submit a state agency confirmation letter. You'll have to just upload that file to your awards, and you can download a copy of the letter and you can submit it to Stephanie or Misty, or you submit it to the CNP mailing address. And this confirmation letter that that LDOE will sign off on just says that you're in good standing. It's pretty short and sweet. You can skip to the next slide. And this is just another screenshot of what the actual application looks like. Inside, you'll have to upload files, again, copy of your menu, copies of the descriptions of what you're doing to either lower sugar or lower sodium, lists of your schools that are participating, etc. You can go to the next slide. And actually, we can skip that one and go on to the very last one. So most importantly, when you do receive an award, what do you get? So you'll get some wonderful things. You'll get a recognition toolkit. You'll get media opportunities. You'll get, opportunities to show your district and, show the parents and the board members what you're doing to really proactively improve the nutrition quality of your school meals, and really just to be awarded for it, because we know that this is things you're already doing, but now you have an opportunity to show that you've been awarded for it as well. But the favorite part of the award for most people is a stipend for travel expenses for 2 people, from what I understand, to attend the Healthy Meals Summit. And I attended one in St. Louis last month, and it was lovely. It was a lot of opportunity to network with other districts and to learn from them. some great activities, great food even. But the next summits are going to be in Las Vegas. There's going to be one in October of 2024. So if you hurry up and apply by around the beginning of June, you might get to go to Las Vegas in this October. And if you wait and apply later on in the fall, you have the opportunity to go to Las Vegas in October of 2025. So I just wanted to put that out there. I would really love to see our Louisiana people flooding Las Vegas, getting these awards, again, to be recognized for things that you're already doing. And that is where I'm going to end it. Oh, except one more thing. If you're really interested in learning more about these awards, because I've really just, covered just the important things you need to know to apply for those lower sugar and lower sodium awards, there will be a webinar tomorrow hosted by Action for Healthy Kids. And they're the entity that USDA contracted with to carry this work out. So they're going to put on a webinar tomorrow. I believe it is at 1:30 our time. And I'm going to share the link to that as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box. We have several people monitoring the chat and they can try to answer your question. If not, you can send an email to childnutritionprograms@la.gov.
Oh, and I see just a few applications. Ask, hi Amy, when do we do the application? Applications are accepted on a rolling basis. There's not really a firm deadline, except that the whole program I think ends by October 2025. So might be around June-ish of 2025 that I would think the latest applications would be accepted, but they're on a rolling basis. So right now there's no firm deadline. Oh, if that was for, I'm assuming, oh, that might have been for some EBT. That might not have been a question for me. So, but anyway, for those who wanted to know that question, there you go. There's the answer. Anybody else? Okay, well, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out to the state agency. And again, I'll post the links in the chat. Thank y'all so much.
Again, thank you, Melissa. All right, everyone. Well, this is Misty Woods. I'm going to continue on with the monthly call. So a good portion of the rest of the rest of the training, or the majority of the rest of today's training, is going to focus on the summary of the recently published final rule that's entitled Child Nutrition Programs, Meal Patterns Consistent with the 2020-2025 Dietary Guidelines for Americans. So on April 25th, 2024, USDA's Food Nutrition Service published the final rule. The changes are based on a comprehensive review of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2020 to 2025, robust stakeholder input on the CNP meal patterns, and lessons learned from prior rulemakings. While this rulemaking is effective July 1 of 2024, USDA is gradually phasing in the required changes over time. Program operators are not required to make any changes to their menus as a result of this rulemaking until 2025-2026 school year at the earliest. So this week on Thursday, May 9th at 1 p.m., USDA will host a webinar for school food authorities on the final rule. The registration link is on this slide, and it was also included on a memo that was recently posted. FNS will share the webinar recording in the future for those that could not attend, and then the webinar recording will be shared to the final rules page, which is linked on this slide. So I highly encourage everyone to register and log on to that webinar. Today is a summary, but the webinar will go into more details. So on this slide, and we used this slide at the state update back in March, but on this slide is a graphic of the implementation timeline for updating the school meal standards final rule, and it's for your reference. Throughout the presentation today, the implementation dates will be referenced, and this graphic shows the implementation timeline on one page. And we will discuss each of these in the next few slides. And on this slide is another graphic about the school meal standard key provisions, which we will also discuss in the next few slides. The way we're going to do it is we're going to go over what the current requirement is for each and then go over what are the changes in the final rule. So the following nutrition requirements are addressed in the final rule: added sugars, milk, whole grains, and sodium. And we're going to discuss each one, like I said, the current requirement and then the changes to the final rule. So let's talk about the current requirements for added sugars. So currently there are no added sugar limits in the school meal programs. The schools may choose to serve some menu items and meals that are high in added sugars, provided that they still meet the weekly calorie limits. CACFP currently has requirements for total sugars rather than added sugars. In CACFP, breakfast cereals must contain no more than 6 grams of total sugars per dry ounce, and yogurt must contain no more than 23 grams of total sugars per 6 ounces. So the changes in the final rule for added sugars. So the final rule establishes the following added sugar limits in the school lunch and breakfast programs. So it's going to be a product-based limits that will be implemented by school year 25-26, so beginning July 1st, 2025. So breakfast cereals may not have more than 6 grams of added sugars per dry ounce. Yogurts may have no more than 6 grams of added sugars per 6 ounces, so 2 grams of added sugar per ounce. Flavored milk may have no more than 10 grams of added sugars per 8 ounces, or for flavored milk that is sold as a competitive food for middle and high schools, it's going to be 15 grams of added sugars per 12 fluid ounces. There will also be weekly dietary limits to be implemented by school year 27-28, so beginning July 1, 2027. That's when the limiting added sugars to less than 10% of calories across the week in the school lunch and breakfast programs. And you'll notice that a lot of the slides are going to be have a lot of words on them, but I did that on purpose to make sure that when you're going to refer back to these slides, it's exactly stated how it is in the final rule. So, current milk requirements. So, currently, schools can offer fat free and low fat 1% milk, flavored and unflavored, in the school lunches and breakfasts and for sale as competitive beverage. Unflavored milk must be offered at each school meal service. So, that's what current regulations are. The good thing is that for the final rule, USDA has decided to maintain the current requirements for milk in schools. So all schools will continue to have the option to offer fat-free and low-fat milk, flavored and unflavored, to K-12 students, and to sell fat-free and low-fat milk, flavored and unflavored, a la carte. Again, unflavored milk must be offered at each school lunch and breakfast for meal service. Flavored milk offered to K-12 students in school lunch and breakfast and sold to students a la carte must comply with the product-based added sugar limits in this rule, which needs to be implemented by 25-26 school year or beginning July 1, 2025. With that being the case, flavored milk must contain no more than 10 grams of added sugars per 8 fluid ounces, or for the flavored milk that's sold a la carte to middle and high school students is 15 grams per 12 fluid ounces. So continue with the same milk requirements. So current requirements for whole grain right now, at least 80% of the weekly grains offered in the school lunch and breakfast program must be whole grain rich, meaning that a product must contain at least 50% whole grain. Any grain ingredients that are not whole grain must be enriched. And again, with this one, for the final rule maintains the current whole grain requirement. So there's no changes with the final rule. You're still going to have 80% of the weekly grains offered in breakfast and lunch have to be whole grain rich. This requirement is a minimum standard, not a maximum, and schools may choose to increase whole grain rich offerings beyond that 80%. USDA also added a definition of whole grain rich in the federal regulations to clarify that whole grain rich is the term designated by FNS to indicate that the grain content of a product is between 50 and 100% whole grain, with any remaining grains being enriched. So for whole grain requirements, that is also staying the same for now. So current requirements for sodium. So current regulations require schools to meet sodium target 1A for lunch and sodium target 1 for breakfast. And these limits apply to the meals on average over the school week. The table on the slide, or the tables on this slide, provide the sodium limits for breakfast and lunch, and this is current. So, for the changes in sodium in the final rule provides schools with plenty of time to gradually reduce sodium in the school meals by instituting one achievable sodium reduction. So from now until and through school year 26-27, or until June 30th of 2027, schools will maintain the current sodium limits, so sodium target 1A for lunch and sodium target 1 for breakfast. So through school year 26-27, you remain the same. Then by school year 27-28, so starting July 1st, 2027, schools are going to have to implement an approximate 15% reduction for lunch and an approximate 10% reduction for breakfast from the current sodium limits. So these limits again are going to apply to the average amount of sodium in lunch and breakfast menus offered during the school week. The sodium limits do not apply per day, per meal, or per menu item. USDA, however, does encourage schools to gradually reduce sodium at lunch and breakfast prior to the implementation deadline by adjusting food preparation methods and purchasing lower sodium foods. So right now you have between now and 2026-2027 school year to work on reducing those sodiums. So the following menu planning flexibilities are addressed in the final rule. It talks about meat and meat alternates at breakfast, substituting vegetables for fruits at breakfast, traditional indigenous foods, substituting vegetables for grains in tribal communities, after school snacks, beans, peas, and lentils at lunch, nuts and seeds, and competitive foods, specifically talking about bean dip exemption. So the current requirements for meat and meat alternates at breakfast. So the three required meal components are fruits, grains, and fluid milk. Meat and meat alternates are not required, as in not a required meal component at breakfast, but schools may substitute that 1 ounce equivalent of meat alternates for the same quantity of grains after meeting the daily minimum grains requirement. So in the final rule establishes a combined grains and meat alternate meal component in breakfast and removes the requirement for schools to offer the 1 ounce equivalent of grains each day at breakfast. Schools can offer grains, meat alternates, or a combination of both to meet the minimum ounce equivalent in this combined meal component requirement. So what this is saying is if you would choose to offer a meat alternate at breakfast, you no longer have to you don't have to meet that 1 ounce of grain first before offering that meat. You can serve both, you can serve one or the other. And again, they go with some specific examples and more into detail on that webinar that will be on Thursday. So current requirements for substituting vegetables for fruits at breakfast. Current regulations allow schools to substitute vegetables for fruits at breakfast, provided that the first 2 cups per week are from the dark green, red, orange, beans and peas, beans and peas or other vegetable subgroups. However, in recent years, through federal appropriations, Congress has provided schools the option to substitute any vegetable for fruit at breakfast with no vegetable subgroup requirement. So in the final rule does continue to allow schools to substitute vegetables for fruits in the school breakfast program and simplifies the vegetable variety requirement. So schools that are choosing to offer vegetables at breakfast one day per school week have the option to offer a vegetable from any of the vegetable subgroups. Schools choosing to substitute vegetables for fruit at breakfast on 2 or more days per school week will be required to offer vegetables from at least 2 different subgroups. But to note here is that for next school year, for 2024-2025, Congress has provided schools the option to offer any vegetables in place of fruits at breakfast, so there's no subgroup requirements for next school year. So traditional indigenous foods currently may be served in reimbursable school meals in accordance with USDA food crediting guidance and policy guidance issued in 2023, although this is not explicitly included in program regulations. The final rule specifically states in regulation that traditional indigenous foods may be served in reimbursable school meals. The regulations include the definition of traditional foods from the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2014, which defines traditional food as food that has traditionally been prepared and consumed by an American Indian tribe. So, substituting vegetables for grains in tribal communities. I know we don't have many, but I'm still going to go over this. USDA currently allows schools in American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands to serve vegetables to meet the grains component in school meals. For schools, this option is intended to accommodate cultural food preferences and to address product availability and cost concerns in these areas. The final rule clarifies that any creditable vegetable can be substituted for grains or breads and expands the vegetables for grain substitution to school food authorities and schools that are tribally operated by the Bureau of Indian Education, and that serve primarily American Indian or Alaska Native children. Summer food service programs and CACFP sponsors sites, institutions, and facilities that serve primary American Indian or Alaskan Native participants, and schools, all schools, sponsors sites, institutions, and facilities in Guam and Hawaii. Okay, so let's talk about after school snacks. So the current requirements for after school snack for children in grades kindergarten through 12th must contain two of the following four components: fluid milk, meat alternates, vegetables or fruits, or whole grains. After school snack for preschoolers ages 1 through 4 must include the food components and quantities required in the snack meal pattern established for CACFP, which requires snacks to include two of the five components: fluid milk, vegetables, fruit, grains, or meat alternates. So, changes in the final rule for after school snacks is to be implemented by July 1st, 2025. The final rule updates NSLP after snack meal pattern requirements for K-12 children to align with CACFP snack requirement. This rule does not change requirements for after school snacks served to preschoolers. Existing requirements for after school snacks served to preschoolers remain in effect. So your NSLP after school snacks will become aligned with CACFP snack requirements come 2025. So current requirements for beans, peas, and lentils at lunch. So current federal regulations require schools to offer vegetables from all five vegetable subgroups at lunch each school week. For the beans, peas, and lentils vegetable subgroup, schools must offer that half a cup at lunch over the course of the week to meet the vegetable subgroup requirement. Schools can credit foods in this subgroup toward the meat alternates component or the vegetable component, but not both components in the same meal. So the final rule maintains the current requirements, allowing schools to count beans, peas, and lentils offered as meat and meat alternate at lunch toward the weekly beans, peas, and lentils vegetable subgroup requirement. Menu planners may determine whether to count beans, peas, and lentils towards the vegetables or the meat alternate component. Schools are still required to offer separate vegetables to count toward the daily and weekly vegetable component requirement when offering beans, peas, and lentils as meat alternates. The final rule also changes the name of legumes, peas, and beans vegetable subgroup and references to beans and peas legumes to beans, peas, and lentils in federal regulations. So most of it is just a name change. Okay, so next is going to be nuts and seeds. So currently, nuts and seeds may be served as meat alternates. In some cases, the regulations limit nut and seeds crediting to 50% of the meat alternates component. The final rule allows nuts and seeds to credit for the full meat alternate component in all meals, so breakfast, lunch, and supper. Serving nuts and seeds is an option, but not a requirement. Program operators are not required to make any changes to their menus to comply with this provision. Operators may choose to offer nuts and seeds to meet the full component or a portion of it alongside other meat alternates. So now let's talk about the competitive foods, the bean dip exemption. So currently to qualify as a smart snack, foods must meet nutrient standards for calories, sodium, fats, and total sugars. Total fat content must not exceed 35% of total calories, and saturated fat must be less than 10% of total calories per item as packaged or served. The current regulations also include a list of foods that are exempt from the total fat and saturated fat standards. The final rule adds bean dip to the list of foods exempt from the total fat standard in the Smart Snacks regulations. This exemption applies to products marketed as hummus as well as bean dips made from any variety of beans, peas, or lentils. Bean dip will continue to be subject to the saturated fat standard for smart snacks as well as other smart snack requirements. This change provides schools the option to sell bean dip, including hummus, as a smart snack. So the following program operations are addressed in the final rule. So they talk about professional standards, the hiring exception for medium and large local LEAs, meal modifications, geographic preference, clarification on your water requirements, artificial trans fats, and Buy American. So the current education requirements vary based on the size of the local educational agency or LEA and are one important way of ensuring school nutrition program directors are prepared to manage the programs. School nutrition directors in medium LEAs are currently required to have a bachelor's or associate's degree, and directors in large LEAs are required to have a bachelor's degree. This final rule allows state agencies the discretion to approve the hiring of a professional with 10 or more years of school nutrition program experience, but who do not hold a bachelor's or associate's degree to serve as a school nutrition program director in medium or large LEA. Director hired under this exception must have a high school diploma or GED. So, meal modifications. Under current regulations, meal substitutions for disability reasons must be supported by a written statement signed by a licensed physician. USDA updated its meal modification policy guidance that include permitting state licensed healthcare professionals to submit a medical statement on behalf of a participant with a disability. This final rule makes clear in regulations the existing policy guidance that state licensed healthcare professionals may write medical statements to request meal modification. The final rule defines a state licensed healthcare professional as an individual authorized to write medical prescriptions under state law and expands the authority to write medical statements to registered dietitians. The final rule also updates and reorganizes the regulatory text to distinguish between disability and non disability requests more clearly and encourages schools offering meals to participants to meet their non disability dietary preferences. So, what this is saying is now registered dietitians can write medical statements as well. Okay, geographic preference. So since 2011, regulations have allowed geographic preference, but do not allow the preference for local to be used as a bid specification. Currently, bidders located in a specified geographic area can be provided additional points or credit calculated during the evaluation of the proposals or bids received in response to a solicitation. The final rule does allow locally grown, locally raised, or locally caught as procurement specifications for unprocessed or minimally processed food items. The final rule continues to allow state agencies and program operators to adopt their own definition of local and does not prescribe a federal definition of local for the purpose of procuring local foods. So clarification on potable water requirements. So currently, school must make drinkable water available and accessible to children at no charge during meal service. The final rule adds the word plain to the regulation and does not require schools to change menus or operations as a result. However, schools may offer water with added fruits, vegetables, and herbs in addition to, but not instead of, plain water during meal service. So let's talk about artificial trans fats. So currently, artificial trans fats are prohibited in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program and in foods sold to children on campus outside of the school meals during the school day, so your smart snacks. The USDA Food and Drug Administration actions to eliminate artificial trans fats from the U.S. food supply have effectively eliminated artificial trans fats from foods made or sold in the U.S. So this rule removes the dietary specification prohibiting artificial trans fats in the NSLP school breakfast and smart snacks in schools. Under this change, schools would not have to comply with and state agencies would not have to monitor the artificial trans fats requirements. Okay, so by Americans, school food authorities are currently required to purchase domestic commodities or products to the maximum extent practicable. School food authorities can use limited exceptions to this provision due to challenges with product availability and or cost, and the two exceptions are provided in USDA guidance. So the final rule adds the limited exceptions to the Buy American requirements related to product availability and or cost to the regulations. The final rule requires schools to maintain documentation to demonstrate the use of the exceptions and allow schools to utilize an exception list when products are not available in sufficient and reasonable available quantities in the U.S. Schools must also include the Buy American requirements when making purchases and entering into contracts for foods used in the school lunch and school breakfast programs beginning July 1 of 2024. The final rule also implements a cap on the amount of non-domestic food purchases a school may make when utilizing the exceptions, and that is going to be beginning school year 25-26, so by July 1st of 2025. USDA will use the phase-in approach to gradually reach the 5% cap on non-domestic food purchases. So the approach includes a 10% cap on non-domestic food purchases beginning in school year 25-26, and then an 8% cap beginning in school year 28-29, and then finally the 5% cap beginning in school year 2031-2032. So basically, they're putting on a cap on the amount of the non-domestic food purchases, but it just gradually reduces over time. So on this slide are some final rule resources. Again, as stated previously, there is a USDA final rule webinar for SFAs this week on Thursday at 1 p.m. We encourage everyone to register and attend this webinar. And USDA will continue to provide additional upcoming guidance on the final rule, but on this slide are several links. There's our final rule webpage that USDA has with several links on it. I actually have the final rule linked on this slide. I believe it's 159 pages. So if you feel like having something to read, go read that final rule. There's a comparison chart of what was proposed, which versus what's current on the final rule. Has a video as well, and then the timeline graphics that we had previously. So I know that it was a lot of information in a short period of time. I encourage you, like I said, to attend that webinar. And then if we still have additional questions, please reach out to us. But we do have some time to make these changes. This will not be the last time you hear about these final rules. As we get more information, we will share more with you. And as we get closer to the time of those changes, we will obviously remind you of when those changes are supposed to occur and be implemented. Okay, so let's just briefly talk of a few reminders, some summer feeding reminders. I spoke to Toya earlier in the week. The biggest deadlines right now are the fact that your applications are due by May 31st or at least 14 days prior to your operating. So get those applications in and so we can get them processed. One thing she wanted me to note is that the non-congregate site request, although we gave school food authorities till April 15th, the absolute deadline is May 15th. So if you have not submitted a non-congregate site request, please reach out to Toya and she is willing to work with you. But after May 15th, there's no other workaround. So on this slide is Toya's contact information. Her phone number is 225-342-6337 or toya.porter3@la.gov. So any questions related to summer, please contact Toya. So let's briefly talk about CEP, some reminders. On this slide is the most recent guidance that was updated. We had some from 2016. It has now been updated in February 2024. So that's all links that we've had from the previous trainings as well, but I left it here for you in case you needed them again. The next thing for CEP is actually to make elections on June 30th, and that will be done in eScholar. So remember, by June 30th, you have to make your final elections for the 2024-2025 school year. If you log into eScholar right now, you will see that all of your data has been accepted. So you should now see accepted as the approval status in eScholar. And last I heard, the elections tab is still hidden because the necessary enhancement have been made, but it's in the testing phase. So right now you may not have access to that elections tab, but it will be coming. And we will definitely let you know because we have our May training coming up for CEP elections. So briefly overview of the equipment grant reminders. So the notification award emails were sent out on March 21st, 2024. It included the amount of the grant and the detailed instructions on how to request the funding. Both the authorized rep and the superintendent were included on the email. And then those SFAs that were not awarded also received an email letting you know that you did not receive the award. However, there is always a chance of a second allocation of funds. So after the first allocation of funds are processed and distributed, if there are any unused funds, there will be a second allocation of those funds. And you will be notified at that time if you've been awarded any funds in that second allocation. So SFAs must obligate the funds by September 30th by sending in the purchase order or invoice, but you also must submit a request for reimbursement on the CMP website by October 21st. And although those are different dates, if it's possible, please submit the purchase order or invoice and the request for reimbursement at the same time, as we cannot process for payment until both are received. And to expedite that reimbursement process, you can email that purchase order or invoice for each piece of equipment awarded by site to stacy.griffin@la.gov and then complete that online request for funding as soon as those funds are obligated. You can call or email Stacy for questions if you are uncertain if your documents were received or if your reimbursement was approved. Some important notes, as we always talk about, you shouldn't have began the procurement activities or purchase the equipment prior to receiving that award notification. You have 6 months to obligate those award funds, and the purchase order or invoice is required for proof of obligating those funds to apply for reimbursement. And on this screen is Stacy's contact information. Her phone number is 225-342-3677 or stacy.griffin@la.gov, and she is your contact person for the 2023 equipment grant. So we have a few memos that have been posted since the last monthly call. So memos SFS 2465 is the original memo, and SFS 24-69 is the reminder memo about the in-person manager training. The in-person manager training is going to be held from July 8th through the 10th at Pennington. On July 8th and 9th, it's full days of training. On July 10th, will be training in the morning, and then the assessment quiz will be in the afternoon. The registration is $60 and it's limited to 40 attendees. So please make sure to register to get your spot. And the reason why we're sending out the memos and the reminder memo is that we haven't had many people that have registered. And so in order for us to have the class, we have to have at least 10 registered. So if you are planning to send managers, please register them for this class. Again, for this class, you have to have their own email address. They must bring a laptop to take the assessment quiz on the last day, and because the assessment will be computerized. So memo SFS 24-66 was about the CEP population data deadline and the office hours, which took place on April 11th. And memo SFS 24-67 was about the March Medicaid free lunch and reduced lunch files that were uploaded to eScholar Direct Match. The public school and the non-public schools have files that needed to be downloaded, and they had to resolve any near matches for those batches. And again, if you ever have questions or need assistance in doing that, please email Jane. Memo SFS 2468 was about the May training. So currently we have May 7th, which is today. This was the monthly call. On May 21st will be the training on the CEP election. So make sure you register for that training. And then May 28th through the 31st is the virtual manager training, and you can register for any of these on the Louisiana Fit Kids website. And as always, our training recordings and slides are posted within a week after the live presentation. So memo SFS 24-70 is about that webinar that's taking place on the final rule. So again, it's on May 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern, so 1 p.m. Central. This is on the final rule. You can refer to this memo for the link to register for that webinar. And again, if you can't make it, there will be a recording in the future, and it's going to be posted on the final rules page, which I also have linked on this slide. And then memo SFS 24-71 is about the April SNAP and TANF loaded to eScholar direct match. So districts should resolve the near matches in the batches that are listed on this screen. And again, if you have questions or need assistance with that, please email Jane. And then I want to just go over again, we did this on the last monthly call about health inspectors, health inspections. It is the responsibility of the SFA to request 2 food safety inspections from their local sanitarian office and document their efforts. So for those agencies that fail to obtain the 2 mandatory food safety inspection, LDOE will request documentation from those sponsors to show that they have made every effort to comply with the federal requirements. So please make sure that you are documenting your request in writing for proper documentation of their efforts to obtain the inspections. And if you have not done so already, if you're trying to submit your March claim, a reminder will appear prior to submitting that claim, asking if there are any current health inspections that need reporting on the CNP website, and a response must be provided. And then for the April claim, sponsor users will not be allowed to submit the claims beginning in April until health inspection reporting has been done for each NSLP approved site. If both have not been completed, be sure to contact the local health department regarding the completion of those required inspections and make sure to document it. And then the last thing we're going to go over today is some upcoming trainings. So today, like I said, is the monthly call. On May 21st will be the CEP elections training. On June 4th will be the June monthly call. And then June 25th, there will be a training on the average meal costs and paid lunch equity. And those should be posted to the Louisiana Fit Kids website soon. And then again, another reminder about the USDA webinar. So you can't say you didn't know about it. I think I said it 5 times at this point, but this is about the webinar for the final rule. And then we briefly talked about the virtual manager training that's May 28th through the 31st, and this is via Zoom. We have lots and lots of people registered for this training. So the 28th of May is an afternoon session. The 29th through the 30th is full day training, and on the 31st is the assessment quiz. And for this one, you need to make sure that participants need to have their own email address, must have their computer and reliable internet at the training location that they are taking the class. The computer must have audio and video capability so that you're able to see and hear and participate in the training. And the assessment will be computerized. And the participants are required to be proctored by the CNP director or designee. And then the last one is about the in-person manager training, what we talked about on the memo, and that is going to be at Pennington, July 8th through 10th. And with that, I know today was a fairly long one, but with that, I will open it up for anyone that has questions. And you can put your questions in the chat box. At the moment, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box. As always, though, you can give us a call at 225-342-9661, or you can email us at childnutritionprograms@la.gov. April, you are correct. So the question is, so you no longer have to put no trans fats in our bid specifications. So basically what they're saying is that the FDA has eliminated from our food supply. So that's not, it's no longer should be in our food supply. So we will no longer have to monitor the trans fats. And actually, if y'all webinar is going to be anyway like ours on the final rule, they give very good examples throughout the webinar. That's why I highly encourage everyone to participate in those trainings, and they gave us lots of time for questions about the final rule. Okay, well, I am not seeing any more questions in the chat. I want to thank everyone for attending today's call. We had lots and lots of topics to discuss, lots of important topics to discuss. Again, if you have any additional questions, please reach out to us. Please call us or email us. Specific to summer EBT, email us and we will try our best to get you an answer at that time. Regarding the final rule, same thing. And as we receive more guidance from USDA and from DCFS regarding either of those topics, we will share that information with you. So with that, everyone have a good day.